So, good morning, Pat. This is Pat O'Connor.
Hello, good morning, and thank you for inviting me. I suppose I should say I have been in higher education for over 46 years in five institutions, three in Ireland, two in the UK. And perhaps one of the things that is very striking is over that period of time, I never had a woman boss. And probably also, and of course, that will have changed now, but probably also something else that is very important is the first 12 years of that 46 years, I was on contracts. Now, I don't think that has changed very much. And I suppose another thing that's perhaps important to say is that I became an overnight success after almost 30 years. This is a good trick. um, but it is an unusual thing to happen, particularly, I suppose, to somebody like me, who, although I have always come across as confident and basically a bit of badass, but on the other hand, I suppose I had the job before I became an overnight success was that I was a course director in women's studies, which is never seen as a kind of a platform for promotion within higher education. And I had been course director in women's studies I was for 6 to 7 years course director in women's studies. So this is an unusual aspect to my life. And then having become an overnight success in terms of moving from lecturer to full professor. I then spent shortly after that, within 3 years, I became dean and was reappointed by four presidents as dean of the faculty. So, in a way, this is an unusual trajectory for somebody who never really had any time for line management, who really never, I mean, always loved teaching, loved talking to students, never really was comfortable with the system. And yet, as I say, I became quote unquote successful to a certain degree. And that's where my memoir, I called it a proper woman, one woman's story of success and failure in academia. Because of course, nobody is ever, they're cutting you if they're telling you it's all wonderful and they're absolutely successful. So that's perhaps just to introduce myself.
Okay, thank you very much, Pat, for introducing yourself. And as you just said, yes, the title of your publication questions in a provocative way what it means to be a proper woman in academia, right? So, in your view, what kinds of gendered expectations still shape women's academic paths? And how do these expectations intersect with dominant ideas of success and legitimacy in academia?
Well, I suppose you see, in a way, the Ireland I grew up in, women were expected to live lives of subordination and self-abnegation and service. And at one level, people can say, "Oh, those days are gone," and certainly they don't exist in academia. Well, hello, who does most of the pastoral care in academia? Hello, who does most of the course administration for undergraduates? I'm sorry, it's still women. The issues of self-abnegation, invisibility, all those issues which we can so casually say, well, of course, that was long ago, that doesn't happen now. If one reflects just a little bit more about it, I think you'll find that these attitudes, service, invisibility, doing the stuff which is crucially important if you see a university, as I do, as a place which is involved in the creation but also the transmission of knowledge. Universities are not simply research institutes. It is about teaching students. It's sort of the joke. It'd be a grand place, if we didn't have the students. It wouldn't be a university if we didn't have the students. So the jobs that are essential for the life of the university, but which are seen as, when it comes to promotion, are seen as, quote, not really important. These are the jobs that women are still expected to do and do. At an even more fundamental level, I suppose I'd want to say that it seems to me that the whole structure and culture of the organisation, of organisations, of universities, institutions of higher education, it is designed by men for men. And surprise, surprise, then, it's men who seem to do so well, surprise, surprise. So in its structure, in its culture, in its all the kinds of arrangements, the assumptions it makes, and which are revealed in the devaluing of the core functions of teaching and pastoral care as students. The fact that these are not seen as really important, and the fact women are seen as, quote, ideally suited to these jobs, it's all very convenient, but actually reveals the gendered character of the institution.
Yes. And I think that my next question will kind of relate a lot to your previous answer. But from your perspective, what makes academic institutions distinctively gendered spaces, especially when we compare academic institutions to other kinds of maybe more conventional kinds of political institutions?
Well, one of the striking things about academia is that there's no agreed metric of success. If you're running a business and you consistently make no profit, right, it's very clear that this can't go on, right? It's failing. Whereas in academia, it's much more complex because at moments the students are seen as the primary stakeholder. At other moments, industry is the primary stakeholder. Then at other moments, it can be the state is the primary stakeholder. So that the whole nature of what is success is very slippery. And hence, there is an opportunity, right, to really at moments disregard all the stakeholders and effectively promote those who, quote, fit best. And the fit is, of course, related to legitimating ideologies. Now, some of those ideologies are also in the private sector, but they are reined in by basic issues like profit. Are you making a profit? Is the business profitable? But so discourses like excellence, like gender neutral organization, where of course the argument would be higher education, gender doesn't matter. We just look for talent, excellence. And so if the people who, some people don't get promoted, it's because they're not excellent enough. Now, there has been a massive amount of research done problematizing the constructions of excellence, which have been shown to be tautological, very convenient, vague, all sorts of problems with them. But yet, the idea that those who are not promoted just weren't excellent enough. This is one of the kind of really important elements of academia. Then, of course, also a second line, which academia would share with other male-dominated organizations, that really it's about choice. Women don't choose to really go forward. They have other priorities. But this in Ireland, this argument has been thrown out of the water because since the 16th century, up to 2020, 16th century was when Trinity College Dublin, the oldest university in Ireland and the most prestigious, this was founded in the 16th century. And between then and 2020, there was no woman at rector president level in any Irish public university. And blow me, between 2020 and 2023, over 2.5 years, the situation changed. It appears women changed. I'm being ironical. And by 2023, 7 of the 12 Irish universities were headed by women, the rector president position. So the argument that women don't choose, women have children, women have caring responsibilities, women aren't political enough, women don't have the academic credentials, etc., this all disappeared because this pattern, which had existed since the 16th century, suddenly changed over 2.5 years. Hello. So I think one of the extraordinary things about universities is that they are deeply gendered, deeply conservative, and that is legitimated by ideologies such as excellence and choice. And certainly in the excellence category, they're very different to most businesses, since you can be saying, well, we're an excellent organization, but if there's nothing in the profit column, you're going to go out of business, however excellent you are. But of course, that's not the way universities work. And I think that is one of the most important and challenging elements of them, because of course many of those who then are promoted and who head up universities, and particularly those at middle levels, want to continue to believe that they got there on merit, that they are exceptional, that so and particularly since in many countries, those who are at the rector positions are often coming from a, quote, hard science or science, broadly science background. And often the ideologies are least challenged in those contexts, because they're based on assumptions about the nature of knowledge, about its objectified nature. And so the idea that that excellence is vague and socially constructed is extremely threatening, and so very vigorously rejected in many of those institutions.